I want to tell you about a room in Shanghai. Picture this, a big open plan office, perhaps 30 or so financial advisors, all of them suited and booted, all of them standing up, all of them on their phones, all of them speaking at the same time. Now, this was what we called a power hour. The idea being that if everyone rang enough people, eventually the numbers would work in your favour. And I suppose that they did. In the same way that a broken clock is right twice a day. Now, I watched this bizarre phenomenon happening for weeks, and I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. In fact, I was desperate to find a better way because that way lay insanity. The sound of 30 people cold calling simultaneously. So there was indeed a better way. And this is a story really about what happened when I found that better way. And it's also about a young man from Mexico who listened more carefully than almost anyone else that I've ever taught. And then what he did with what he heard was really quite extraordinary. Now, I'd been a professional in sales since I was 9 years old. And that's not an exaggeration, since I was a little lad of 9. So, by the time I arrived in Shanghai at the age of 53, let's say I had a fairly settled view of exactly how to build a client base. And it wasn't through cold calls. It was through genuine connections, through getting to know people, and I realised through network, through being the kind of person that other people want to introduce to their friends naturally. Now, I had learned the hard way, with help that I didn't ask for, but I needed, that chasing clients signals a kind of desperation, even when it's very polished desperation. And the professionals who build the best client bases, well, they don't go chasing desperately after people. No, they become worth finding. So that's what I did effectively in Shanghai. And it worked. In fact, it worked so well, I became number 1 in that office and then in the top 20 in the world, which meant that when it came to advising my team, well, I had something real to advise them on. My first piece of advice was to stop the power hours, stop the cold DMs in the LinkedIn messages and go networking, to build trust first and then the business follows. Now, when I conveyed this rather revolutionary message, most of that team smiled politely, they took notes. Now, they were happy to attend the events that I organised, and they were considerably less keen, however, to go out and create or attend events themselves, because networking, anyway, at least real networking, requires something by way of investment. Not a huge one, but certainly a meaningful one. Free events, I discovered myself, produced free results. If you want the kind of event where serious professionals actually show up, then you have to be willing to pay to be in the room. Most of the team weren't quite ready for that payment. Paying for Sales Navigator was about all they were willing to do. But then there was Miguel. Now, Miguel was in his mid-20s. He was Mexican, he was very pleasant, and he was one of the most diligent people that I've ever known or worked with. Because before I spoke to him about networking, he'd been doing everything really the hard way. He had numerous detailed spreadsheets, and I mean detailed. They tracked his cold calling rates. They tracked his LinkedIn connection figures. They tracked his email open rates, his statistics on this and that. He had statistics for everything. Now, he was working extraordinarily hard and getting, frankly, rather modest results. Now, I sat with him one afternoon and I talked to him about a different way. And I watched his eyes light up. Not just at the idea of networking, but the idea of creating events, of bringing people together, of being the person at the centre of the room, rather than one of those annoying voices that the population of Shanghai was fed up of, coming at them from behind a desk somewhere in an anonymous office. Now, I have talked to a great many people about networking in the course of my career. Many of them nod, some of them enthusiastically, and most of them go right back to their desks and do exactly what they were doing before. Miguel did not do that. Miguel was naturally friendly. Miguel knew what it meant to create relationships, perhaps partly because of the cultural side of Mexico and the life of family, the life of gathering. So Miguel didn't just do networking, that doesn't do it justice. He, yes, started attending networking events, but he didn't do it reluctantly. He found ways to get into those groups and to speak at those groups, to become the known face in certain rooms. He came to events that I was attending, and I watched him happily apply what we had discussed, and I watched him, more importantly, make that application his own. Because that's the thing about good advice, when someone's genuinely ready to hear it. They don't just apply it, they improve it, they refine it, they find the version of it that is specifically theirs and theirs alone. Miguel's version was better than mine in several respects. Miguel really gathered together a family feeling in a way that I really couldn't. And he became, in many senses, my protege. Not in the sense that he copied me, in the sense that he learned from me diligently, and then he applied it, and then he moved right past me, which, as far as I'm concerned, is exactly what a protege should do. Some years later, Miguel moved from Shanghai to Hong Kong, and Miguel has never looked back. Now, I don't know exactly where Miguel is now, but I would bet a fairly reasonable sum that Miguel has told somebody else what I told Miguel, and that they are all the better for it. Now, there are two things in this story that I would like to draw your attention to. The first of those things is about giving advice. Now, I didn't invent what I told Miguel. I passed on something that I'd received and that was shaped by my own experience. And I delivered it at a time when Miguel was ready to hear it. The best advice is almost never original. It's well timed. Now, most professionals who try to teach or to mentor make the mistake of teaching what they know rather than what the other person is ready to hear, what they're ready to learn, and what they are ready to implement. Those are two completely different things. Miguel was ready, which is why it worked. And the second thing I'd like to talk about is the receiving of advice. Now, Miguel, when I met him, Miguel had a ton of spreadsheets. He had a ton of statistics. He had a shit-proof inbuilt system. And when someone that he trusted sat down with him and said, look, Miguel, my friend, there is a better way, he didn't defend his spreadsheets. No, he got curious. And that quality right there, that's one of the rarest things in professional life. The willingness to set aside and set down what you've been doing and genuinely consider something different. Not because those spreadsheets in themselves were wrong, but because the spreadsheets in themselves were not enough. In my experience, most people out there hear something useful and then they go back to exactly what they were doing before. That useful advice, well, it gets filed somewhere between interesting and not quite ready yet. Now, Miguel did something different. Miguel got genuinely curious. He applied it. He improved it. He moved. I think about that room, that open office sometimes, and those 30 people all standing up, all on their phones, all at the same time, working very hard, but in the wrong direction. Most of them, as far as I know, are probably still working very hard in some version or other of that room. Miguel, well, he's probably in a room of his own now, with someone sitting across from him whose eyes are about to light up. That is how the lesson moves, not through textbooks, not through courses, through one person at the right moment saying to another person at the right moment, there is a better way. Take care of yourselves and take care of those you seek to work with.